Chapter 10 Cocktail Hour. J. Alfred Prufrock may have measured out his life with coffee spoons while taking tea, but there's no time for tea time on island time. Most islanders I know prefer cocktail hour. Their favorite tea is iced and of the Long Island variety. Owing to its sunny and lazy character, the salt life naturally invites a certain amount of cocktail sipping. This isn't surprising, since, after all, as George Bernard Shaw so eloquently put it, whiskey is liquid sunshine. As with most things, tourists tend to give alcohol consumption a bad name. The seasoned local, on the other hand, understands that a well-constructed cocktail or two, or sometimes three, in the late afternoon is a perfect way to celebrate yet another beautiful island day while transitioning into yet another splendid island evening. That said, I've never been one to drink every day. I don't like having my faculties impaired when I have work to do, so I have my secretary carefully schedule my cocktail days. My personal drinking career has gone through several phases. As a teenager, I started out, I can't believe I'm admitting this publicly, with Bartles and James wine coolers. This regrettable phase lasted until my taste buds matured somewhere around 18 and I began drinking beer. I soon came to agree enthusiastically with Benjamin Franklin's sentiment. Beer is proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy. It didn't take me long to become something of a connoisseur. In college, I kept a beer journal during my junior year abroad in Europe, in which I rated and described more than 200 brews I sampled over the course of my travels. I was thoroughly impressed by many of the German and Austrian suds I tried. But the best beer I remember having was Chimay Blue, an unsurpassed Trappist ale with a powerful punch perfected over the centuries by Belgian monks, who may not have been on island time but still had way too much time on their hands. For several years after college, I took a fancy to wine drinking. I developed my palate enough to tell good wine from bad, but I never became passionate about wine the way I did with beer. Perhaps it's like cats and dogs. You're either a wine or a beer person. Then, right as I was transitioning to liquor in my late 20s, my drinking days were abruptly cut short when I was hobbled by a bizarrely debilitating disease that made me allergic to everything in general and alcohol in particular. Because of my severe reactions to the stuff, I barely touched anything besides rubbing alcohol for the better part of a decade. Eventually, with the help of a sound healing technique Lee and I developed called the Regenetics Method, I recovered from my illness, at which point I was mercifully able to drink whatever I liked again. Still, I didn't imbibe with any regularity until I moved to Margaritaville and got on island time. At first I tried reconnecting with beer, but as I was approaching 50, I found it to be liquid weight that ruined my girlish figure and made it more challenging to body surf, especially when I beached like a whale riding shore breaks. I still have scars on my abdomen where my skin got sandpapered as I rode up the beach like an aging Pete Rose sliding head first. As for wine, I played around with that for a little while, but just felt over it. White wine was never my favorite, and I hated the way red wine stained my teeth. So it was back to liquor for me. There's a kind of psychological poetry in returning to the pure stuff after experiencing cocktailus interruptus in my late 20s. I suppose I had some unfinished business with liquor. So much so that I find myself working on a cocktail book even as I record these musings. We'll see if I ever finish and publish the thing. If I do, I suspect it could be my magnum opus, not as a work of literature, certainly, but in the sense of being arguably the most worthwhile content I'll be leaving behind for posterity. Cocktails are unquestionably an art form, hard to master but aesthetically satisfying when you do. Tasting new liquors is comparable to exploring new color combinations. I tend to think of creating cocktails as a type of painting. After all, both disciplines make use of palettes. Below, I'm including recipes for a couple of my favorite craft cocktail inventions so far. The first, Small Island Iced Tea, is a tiki take on a classic beverage. The second, Sour Plush, is like a whiskey sour, only more complex and, in my humble opinion, tastier. Small Island Iced Tea. Ingredients: 1 ounce dark rum, Mount Gay Black Barrel is a good choice. 1/2 ounce Cardamaro. 2 ounces Zevia zero-calorie mixer ginger beer, 3/4 of an ounce freshly squeezed lime juice, 3 liberal dashes Hella Bitter, 3 drops doTERRA wild orange essential oil, 1 tablespoon wholesome organic turbinado raw cane sugar. Preparation. Pour turbinado raw cane sugar onto a small plate and moisten the rim of a chilled cocktail glass with lime juice. Gently dip the rim into the sugar until the glass is topped with crystals. Place a handful of large ice cubes in a shaker, add the other ingredients, and stir gently with a bar spoon for approximately a minute or until very chilled. Add a few cubes to the cocktail glass and then strain the tea over them carefully so as to avoid wetting the sugar rim before more fully appreciating the island life. Sour Plush. Ingredients: 1 ounce Koval single barrel millet whiskey, 1/2 ounce Cardamaro, 1/2 ounce Salerno, 1/2 ounce Velvet Falernum, 3/4 of an ounce freshly squeezed lime juice, 4 drops stevia extract, preferably Cal Sure Stevia, maraschino cherry for serving, preferably the Silver Palette or another all-natural brand. Preparation. Combine whiskey, Cardamaro, Salerno, Velvet Falernum, lime juice, and stevia extract in a cocktail shaker. Fill shaker halfway with ice cubes, cover, and shake athletically until your hands begin to feel frostbitten, about 30 seconds. Strain mixture into a chilled cocktail glass half full of ice cubes, garnish with a cherry. Enjoy irresponsibly. Just kidding. Sort of. One of the twists, pun intended, in my cocktail book is that, compared to most other sources out there, it provides healthy-ish options for mixing drinks. Since traditional grain alcohol can contribute to various undesirable conditions, I always try to recommend less inflammatory and, whenever possible, organic options. Whiskey made with millet over less friendly types of grain, and potato gin and vodka over their more common and less salubrious versions, for example. In addition, both recipes above call for pancreas-friendly stevia as a sugar substitute. I also suggest real organic sugar for coating rims and all-natural maraschino cherries, since the standard ones found in grocery stores and used in bars are loaded with toxic preservatives and carcinogenic red dye. I'm aware cocktails aren't for everyone, so pardon me if I've offended your religious sensibilities or the subject is simply of no interest to you. But please spare me the propagandistic claptrap that alcohol is inherently bad for you. Everything is bad for you and causes cancer when overdone or done improperly. Blah, blah, blah. But according to one recent study referenced in Time, consuming alcohol in moderation could literally extend your life. So if you don't want to die before your time, drink up. But even if spirits were unequivocally harmful, I say who cares? Alcohol may or may not be bad for you, but there's no question that it's bad for people to be good all the time. Consider the millions of teetotaling, rule-following sheeple who are absolutely dying on the inside. These folks could definitely use a stiff drink. One great thing about alcohol is its potential to bring people together. Back in the day, Frank Sinatra had a luxurious pool home called Twin Palms in the star-studded movie colony of Palm Springs, California. Whenever he was in town, every afternoon around 5 o'clock, he used to raise a Jack Daniels flag inside his compound to invite the neighbors to cocktail hour. Scads of famous people showed up at these infamous parties. Presidents, royalty, and celebrities made up a who's who of 1950s glitterati who attended. And yes, there was a fair amount of raucous behavior on display. As evidenced by his choice of flag, Old Blue Eyes was a legendary whiskey drinker. "I feel bad for people who don't drink," he reportedly said. "When they wake up in the morning, that's as good as they're going to feel all day." I'm thinking of recreating a miniature version of Sinatra's cocktail hour here on my small island. Maybe I'll have my own flag sewn and run it up the flagpole by the pool when drinks are about to be served. I'm sure the condo regime wouldn't have any problem with that, not as long as they get to drink for free. If you're ever in this neck of the woods and see a flag with a martini glass flapping high in the breeze, that's the only invitation you need. Please, do drop by and introduce yourself over cocktails, and be sure to bring your bathing suit. Bonus cocktail recipe: sweet tart. Ingredients: 1 ounce Cointreau, 2 ounces Stevia-sweetened Zevia Cherry Cola, 3/4 of an ounce freshly squeezed lime juice, 1 tablespoon maraschino cherry juice, preferably the Silver Palette or another all-natural brand. Maraschino cherry for serving, preferably the Silver Palette or another all-natural brand. Preparation: combine Cointreau, Zevia Cherry Cola, lime juice, and cherry juice in a cocktail glass 3/4 full of ice cubes. Stir gently with a bar spoon until well chilled before garnishing with a cherry and enjoying with an adolescent grin and giggle.